Well, hello everybody, and welcome back if you're returning from a previous video. Today I'm going to debut probably a very short series of videos that I'm going to entitle The Red Shadow Remembers. And what that means is, as opposed to say doing a list of my top favorite games or talking about my gaming history or some of the other things where they're either a running series of something that's current to me even if it's old, you know, because like your favorite games are your favorite games for all time usually. But this particular series is going to touch on things that are kind of gone and in the past. And in particular, this first one is going to be about pretty much my favorite video game magazine, which was called PSM when it debuted in the 90s and later became the PlayStation, the official magazine, after the official US PlayStation magazine folded up and Sony gave the rights to the PSM magazine to become its new official mag. Yeah, this is my favorite magazine. I have countless issues sitting here in front of me and on the floor. I went through them so I could grab a bunch of notable issues to show off. So I want to talk really briefly about the magazine and why I liked it so much. In my gaming history videos, I mentioned that PlayStation, the first one, was pretty much my magazine, or my video game console. It was like the one that really solidified my interest in gaming, and it's the one that I look back to the most with the fondest memories. And a magazine based solely around that console, as good as PSM was, it's going to have to rank up there pretty high. So the things that I loved about it, it was colorful, it was splashy, it was the 90s, you know, it was like anime, comic books, movies, of course, video games, but before video games really took on all of those kinds of styles, this magazine was doing it in full force. The staff of the magazine, the editors, everybody who was a part of that magazine just seemed to bring so much fun and passion to every page of the magazine. I wish I could remember all the names. I know Chris Slate was like the editor of the magazine, but there was a whole bunch of other great guys who you know, put their heart and soul into this magazine. And it showed. It had previews, reviews, codes, strategies, articles with people and companies in the business that involved in PlayStation, and it did carry on to PS2 and PS3. But the heart and soul of it, I would say, was probably from about, let's see, we're looking at 1997 till about 2004, 2005. I think those were probably the best years. So I guess without further ado, let's take a look at some of these magazines. Now, this is the first one I wanted to show. This is issue number 5. This is the oldest one that I have in my collection right now. For some reason, I thought the oldest one I had was issue 7, but I had issue 5. Of course, I also thought that the first issue I had Final Fantasy 7 on the cover, but that was issue number 1, and I don't have that one. I'd love to get it, though. But this one here has got the preview for 1998, and it's got characters from Tekken, from Resident Evil 2. I see Solid Snake up here. We got Raiden from Mortal Kombat. That's probably Sonya from Mortal Kombat as well. So, and this is another thing that I liked about the beginning of this magazine anyway. The original days, they did comic book artist covers. They did the artwork for these, and it looked really, really good. So anyway, that was my oldest issue that I have. This next issue here is issue number 10, June 1998. It's got Crash Bandicoot on the cover. But the reason why I wanted to point this one out, and I'm kind of going to fail at this because I was hoping to show something other than this, and now I should have bookmarked where I was wanting to go with this because I can't find the reviews. There it is. Not sure how easy it's going to be to see this, but this is their review for Mega Man Legends, which is one of my favorite PS1 games. But they had put a review of that up in a previous issue, probably one that I don't have. And then they said, oops, we got an early copy of the game. Capcom has told us that that's not final, and they apologized for it. And then they had their new review, and it just caught my eye. I thought, man, this is a magazine that admits their mistakes. Maybe all magazines had been doing that, but I hadn't caught on to that before. And in a gaming magazine, it was nice to see that. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next issue. The reason why I'm showing off this one is not just because of the sexy ladies there, but because the comic book artist who drew this cover is J. Scott Campbell, and he's my favorite comic book artist. You'll be hearing about him in a future video when I talk about my favorite comic book of all time. It was created, well, partially created, and art was done by J. Scott Campbell for several issues. I just thought I would show that off. Alright, now we're going to kind of buzz through, well, this one I got to mention something on. This is the April 2000 issue. It's got artwork on there from Legend of Dragoon, but the main thing I wanted to show off is this little doohickey here at the top, this Valkyrie Wild game. This was an April Fool's joke, which was a big thing to do in the video game magazines back in the 90s, and some of them even still do it now, like Game Informer does. But this one here caused some controversy. This character here, Valkyrie Wild, as you can see by the picture, is essentially naked. And a lot of people thought that this was legit. They thought that somebody was actually coming out with a game where the protagonist was going to be a hot female who was in the buff. But actually it was kind of making fun of people who thought that there was codes out there for Tomb Raider where Lara Croft would be naked. But some of the magazines had to think twice about their April Fool's jokes after that one. Okay, now I think we'll buzz through some here. I've got two stacks in front of me. One is notable issues, one is just nice artwork. So this is a notable issue here because this is a code book that PSM put out with all kinds of codes for the original PlayStation. I'm not sure what the date is on this. So anyway, it was just kind of neat that they put out codes for different games. There's some of the codes there. Miles and miles of codes. Alright, so up until this issue here, the issue 33 in May 2000, every issue that had come out had been done by comic book artists, or artists for the covers. Up until this one, which this one here was to highlight what was supposed to be actual PS2 graphics of Goldberg, the wrestler. So to me that's notable because it was the first time in 32 issues that they had not used comic book cover art. Now here is the issue where they reveal the PlayStation 2, and that takes me back. The good old days, the old PS2. Here's an issue that has artwork on it, but it's Grand Theft Auto artwork. But this issue is about Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which was my favorite GTA before number 5. This one here, the headline, Sega on PS2, unheard of. Sega, this was right after the Dreamcast had collapsed and Sega decided to go into the software development side of things. So this was advertising that there were Sega games coming to the PS2 for the first time ever. Now we're jumping ahead a little bit. Is PS3 worth $600? This is around the time the PS3 was coming out, and the magazine was highlighting stuff like that. My opinion, not worth $600 in the beginning for the kinds of games that were available for it. Here's one, PS3 versus the 360, the epic face-off. Now, of course, it's a PSN or it's a PlayStation magazine, so they did favor things in PS3's on PS3's side, but they did have some good things to say about the 360. I just kind of like this cover. It's Lara Croft jumping, and they're just assuring everybody that the new PS3 Tomb Raider Legend game was going to be good. It was good, but not as good as the reboot a few years later. And then my last notable cover, just because I like wrestling, and this was an intense looking cover, Rey Mysterio here, SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. Okay, now we're going to jump over to some artwork covers. This is just a Resident Evil 2 cover. I really like the way that one looks. And this one here is Mortal Kombat 4. That was the 3D one that came out on the PlayStation 1. It wasn't the greatest game, but that's a nice cover. Here's a cover that's talking about Final Fantasy VIII. It's not really the greatest artwork, but the Final Fantasy games really hit me in the nostalgia. This one here is from Legacy of Kain. Pretty sure this is probably Soul Reaver, the original one. But looking pretty intense. There's a nice quick Tomb Raider when Tomb Raider 3 was coming out. I believe, well, this is a combination of 3 games that were on there, but I always see the girl from Darkstalkers, a game that I never played. Regina from Dino Crisis with T-Rex behind her. Some artwork from Tenchu 2, a great stealth ninja game. Let me just throw that onto the floor. Final Fantasy IX characters, the last Final Fantasy game on the PS1. And you've got Dark Cloud, and it says Zelda Killer. Yeah, no, sorry. Dark Cloud games were kind of cool, but especially Dark Cloud 2, but neither one of them were good enough to take that out. This one I just show because it's a Mortal Kombat game that was really epically horrible, Special Forces, but I like the artwork for it. Final Fantasy X, the first PlayStation 2 Final Fantasy game. Here's The Rock saying "Just bring it." Really good artwork there. Looks like J. Scott Campbell, but the area where his name was probably penciled on there, it doesn't say. I'm sure it says inside the magazine, but I gotta be quick here. Another Mortal Kombat cover. Sub-Zero looking pretty awesome. Metal Gear 2, there's Solid Snake. And here's another Final Fantasy X cover. Okay, and then I just wanted to show a couple more things. One, an example of a bad cover. This is a James Bond inspired cover, and look at the looks on their faces, especially hers. I mean, seriously? I mean, really? Okay, now I want to jump real quick to show off a cover or two of the magazine that PSM became, which is PlayStation, the official magazine. There's Metal Gear Solid 4. There is Crisis Core, and when all the Final Fantasy VII Resurgence was coming back, you had Crisis Core, you had the Advent Children movie, all that kind of stuff. And then let me just show the last two that I had that came out in 2010. You've got a God of War cover there with Kratos, and a Lord of the Rings cover. So anyway, I had to kind of hurry this along because my timer on my computer, I forgot to put my screensaver off so I could see what time it is. So hopefully I haven't went too long with this. PSM was a great magazine. May it rest in peace. I miss it. I miss those fun times in gaming. Wish the 90s would just come back. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.